unless they, of course, drug you
Right.
to church.
Right.
So you could be around
Well,
other
another
men,
being, yeah.
or you had Uncle Bobo or whoever
Mm-hmm.
that was supposed to take the place
Right.
of that person that was supposed to be responsible
Mm-hmm.
for your healthy growth and development. And what concerned me about that, because we're such nurturers,
Mm-hmm.
and we operate with such emotion, such feeling, that when we're raising little boys, when we're raising young men, we're not really in touch with them because they're on the logical track, and we're on the emotional track, and we're trying to create behavior.
Right.
So many choices, so many decisions, and so little time. Do you wrestle to understand the equations of life? Start a business or start a job? Should you get in a relationship or do you end one you're in? Is there more you should be doing with your life? What's your purpose and calling in life? Decisions. Are you at a point in your life where you need answers? There's definitely hope. Join the Unplugged experience. Get connected with noted life coach, spiritual teacher, and catalyst for change, Dr. Diane Clark, for her show called Unplugged.
Good morning, and thank you for tuning in to Unplugged. I'm your host, Dr. Diane Clark, and this is the fine month of June. We began our summer months this year, and also this is the month that we celebrate fathers and we celebrate men. So we've entitled every show this month, Mentality. We want to minister to our men and encourage our sons, fathers, uncles, brothers, in the need to remain healthy emotionally and mentally. It is so important. If you find yourself, if you're kicking the cat and slapping the door and turning the children upside down, chances are you're not quite emotionally or mentally healthy. And so we want to make it very comfortable for you to seek help because it's important. Life is short. We want to have healthy relationships. We want to have good family relationships. So sometimes we have to stop and just have a conversation about what's going on with mentality. Today, I want to introduce my guest, who is here, a very special guest that I've known from teenage years, I believe. He makes me feel dated, but I'm glad that he's here on the show with me today. Let me introduce to you Mr. David Girard. David is an actor, a poet, and a playwright. He was most recently seen in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Other credits include opening for Nikki, Giovanni with Girard 3, performing at the Nuyorican, Poets Café, the Baruch Performing Arts Center, Lincoln Center in New York City, and many other places. And I believe, David, you're getting ready to do another play.
Yes. We are in production right now for the Shawshank Redemption, which opens May 20th.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So it will be over May
by the time.
20th by the time the show airs.
Right.
But thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be my guest on today for Mentality.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I want to dive right in, and I really want you to just release some nuggets, some inspiration for men, because there may be young men, this is June, who are out of school and just happen to whiz by the channel and see
Okay.
that there's a man, because we've interviewed so many women.
Okay.
But I want to ask you, I want to start out by asking you, how did you get into playwriting and poetry? And
Oh, well, my mother kept me on the stage as a young child. I was that kid performing at church.
Okay.
Reciting all the Bible verses, that was me. Every special program, that was me. So the stage just came naturally to me. But as far as how I got into this level, I woke up one day and I had all these poems I had written, and I said it was just put on my heart to do something with them. Okay. And so I found this place called Juice in Java. I started performing, and then I met a buddy of mine who was like, we need to write a play. And so he got commissioned to write a piece, and he brought me on board. We wrote it. We wound up in New York, Baltimore, and then from that, I've just never stopped.
that is awesome. So your foundation started in the church.
Yeah. Right
I
in church.
know a lot of kids are a part of the being drug congregation. where they were drugged to Sunday school, drugged
Yeah.
to BYU, drugged to whatever was going on that had to do with youth. Because in those days, you know, as parents, we felt like we were inadequate anyway, and we wanted to bring in any involvement
Right.
that would have a positive influence on our children.
Right. I mean, if it wasn't for that, I don't think I would have had the comfortability to be able to get up in front of people. Because a lot of people can't do it. They get stage fright. They hate public speaking. And I think I would have probably been the same way if it had not been for my upbringing in the church.
That is so powerful. And a lot of our actors, a lot of our hip hop personalities came from
Oh
church.
God, a lot of our singers,
Yeah.
especially the one from the Motown, Atlanta Stacks area, that they grew up singing in the church. Whitney Houston grew up singing in the church.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's so valuable to have those foundations. I've often wondered why we didn't make room for them, why they had to, quote unquote, they say leave the church or leave the church scene
Yeah.
to do what they were doing. But wouldn't it have been awesome if we could have created a space?
Yeah, I think at that time it was a little bit more difficult because the line between what was considered religious and what was considered secular was a lot more rigid. And so I think they wanted more recognition for their talents. They wanted to have a bigger audience to reach. And I think they just crossed over. But now it's not that way when you look at the music of today, especially the gospel music of today. A lot of it resembles, you know, some secular music, which now we've created that space for people to be able to exist in the church without actually having to cross over into what is considered the secular world.
Yeah. You know, I am dealing with some generational information so that I can make it relevant to my public. And I'm discovering, I was talking with another gentleman, that there is a need now to have a conversation about functional holiness, especially with the millennials
Yes.
and Gen Z, Gen X,
Right.
because the standards that were set for us, we couldn't keep them. We tried. We did the best that we could.
Right.
But, you know, we often failed, and if we were raising children, that affected them because they say, well, you're telling me we're supposed to do this, this, and this, and I don't see you doing this, this, and this. And,
Right.
and children do not negotiate your trying to do something
No.
from you actually following through
Right,
and
'cause
doing it.
They just don't know how. You take a 6-year-old or 8-year-old and tell them to negotiate or try to navigate what you're trying to become, and they can't do it because they don't have those experiences. They've only been on this earth 6 to 8 years, and 5 of those they don't remember.
Right.
You know,
Pretty
so they
much.
have 3 years of actual applied knowledge that they're trying to work with, and a lot of times as parents, we try to treat them as if they came into this world knowing what we know, and I think that's where the divide comes as far as parents and children. Speaking to where we're trying to get to, as far as the generational thing goes, I think we have to remember that the message that we want to give to our kids is one of love. Okay, and love is all encompassing, and love forgives all. So we can't be as rigid as our parents were, because I grew up in a household with no forgiveness. You know, it was like, you know,
You don't have to talk about us like that.
No. No, it's fine. I mean, I give to the generation that was before me, I give them that they were doing the best that they could with the tools that they were given. And I think it's a little different in the Black community because we forged the tools that we had to work with, you know, coming out of slavery, segregation, Jim Crow. And we had to forge the tools pretty much on our own. So I give more so of a pass as far as that goes, because you were doing the best that you could according with the tools that you were given.
That's true, because
So,
most everything in our lives until the technology revolution came into being was learned by example.
Right.
We just did what our parents,
Parents did, exactly.
Whether
And-
it was effective or not. The fact that you became an adult, you know, and you either married or went to college,
Yeah.
you did, you know, it was like, whew.
Yeah, I did okay. Kind of. You know, I hear a lot of people say, you know, I was raised this way, I was raised such and such a way, and I'm fine. And I'm like, no, you're not.
Right.
You know, you're functioning.
Yes.
You know, like you have functional alcoholics, you have functional crack addicts,
Right.
you have people who function with trauma as well, all
Right.
three being diseases. So just because you're functioning with your trauma doesn't mean that you're fine.
That's right. And it shows up in our relationships. Usually, it shows up in relationships that you care about, because we have a
Right.
lot of relationships, but
Yeah.
the ones that we really want to work, the ones that we really want to stay involved with, are usually the ones where, in fact, any places in us that have not been healed or reconciled comes to the forefront, because we're more open, we're more vulnerable, because we want this to work. How
Right.
did that impact you in your adult life?
Well, I grew up in a very tumultuous home, so I didn't see a lot of relationships that actually worked.
Okay.
You know, I saw functioning relationships, but not relationships that work like I would come to know relationships are supposed to work. So in my life, I didn't want that. I wanted to be able to be completely honest in my relationships, and that meant that everything that I came with, all the vulnerability, all the weakness, I needed not be afraid to be judged by those things. So a lot of times in relationships, we hide who we truly are because we feel like the other person's going to judge us.
Right.
And I think it was my first stint with therapy where I found out that no relationship is going to work. You can't keep that
You
up.
went to therapy?
Yes, I went to therapy. I've been to therapy
But
twice.
you're a young black man, and everybody knows that, you know.
Look, if you can, get help. I don't care if it's your church counselor. I don't care if it's your guidance counselor. Seek therapy. Someone, especially if you know you went through something. Now, there's a lot of us walking around who don't know that we've been through things. They're like, okay, we're fine. You know, I made it. That's not the case. A lot of us walk around with that trauma on our back, and you got to go talk about it. And for me, it was imperative that I go see somebody, because where I was at my life at the time, I had created, because I used to be what is called a self-saboteur. So I'd enter relationships and sabotage them just so when they didn't work or whatever, then I already had an out.
Right.
And when you realize that's how you operate, yeah, you need to go talk to somebody. So I went to therapy, and I had to really focus on my role in a lot of the things that I considered went wrong in my life. And that's where I had to start. And then from there, it opened up, floodgates from what happened to me in my childhood, and how the reason why I had an issue with authority figures was because I had an issue with my parents. And it was just, so therapy, it works. If you've grown up in a tumultuous household, it doesn't even have to be that tumultuous.
Right.
If you've grown up with any sort of trauma, please go seek help.
That is so important, David, because a lot of people who have been traumatized have internalized that as normal.
Yeah.
And they seek the repeated behavior from other people because that's normal.
Yeah.
But we often get in situations when you've been traumatized, trauma writes itself into your DNA. It becomes a part of you, and you begin to think of it as, oh, well, this is just me. I'm this way. Until you get to that person that's going to be objective, that person who's going to be honest with you, and have the ability to discuss or have a conversation that allows you to be transparent.
Right.
And that's what counseling does.
Exactly.
It allows you that opportunity to say, man, my relationships sucked. It was something wrong with every man that I met, okay? This is a scenario.
Yeah.
And so then the counselor is going to ask you, well, where were you in that situation?
And that is a gorilla biscuit to swallow. It is a very hard pill to swallow when you have to figure out, what was your role, in the relationships that failed. But once you start to take responsibility for your part in it, then you can start to heal. Then you stop making those mistakes. Then you stop entering relationships that you know are no good for you. And then you're also able to shed the relationships that you have that you know are bad for you. So, yeah, it's very transformative.
It is. I am a number one supporter of counseling, not just because I'm a coach, but I know how counseling has affected my own life. And I watched how a skillful counselor or coach can really allow you have the answers in you already.
Yeah.
But you don't know how to unearth them.
Right.
And as our black men, I've noticed in different age groups, like older black men feel like if they work and they provide, then you should know that I love you.
Yeah.
Because they were exposed to hunger, small, inadequate housing. And so when they feel like I'm working, I'm bringing the money home, you have a home, we're paying the mortgage, we're paying the rent, you're driving a car, I'm driving a car. How you don't know I love you?
Well, I mean, and also like they didn't even understand that they were having feelings. Okay.
Right.
Because never given the opportunity to express themselves. So if I'm feeling frustrated and all I know is just it's this feeling in my bones and I'm not able to articulate that I'm frustrated, then it's just fine. This feeling will go away. But once I figure out, okay, I'm frustrated, what is the cause of this frustration? Then I can deal with the frustration. Men of that ilk didn't do that.
No.
There's like, I work,
Yeah.
I love you.
Yeah.
And if they said, I love you, twice a year, consider yourself lucky. And all of that, talking about who you are as a person, there was no place for that. There was no time for that.
Right.
And so the children who did, the artists in the family who wanted to express themselves, they got shut out a lot of times because those men couldn't express themselves. And the women, sorry to say, at that time, they weren't as independent, they weren't as forthcoming or whatever, and they couldn't even speak to it because they were being provided for as well.
That's right. And they felt that, well, this is just what's normal. I didn't see this love exhibited in my family, so we're all right because we're normal.
Right.
We're
Right.
doing what was done. But I am so grateful for the evolution that's taken place, especially among our young generations. The thing that concerns me is that a lot of millennials, have separated themselves from any spiritual experience. And they're going after crystals and psychics. I've even talked to some who are saying they're studying to be a witch. Why do you want to be a witch? I'm trying to, why do you want to be a warlock? What is that about? But the fact that they're seeking counseling or coaching says that they realize something is kind of off kilter here. I'm saying this is what I want to do, but something is making me come to you.
Well, I think what happens is we've gotten away. So I think what we all search for is a purpose, right?
Right.
A meaning for our
Right.
existence.
Right.
And we watched our parents, try to find an existence in the church and whatever else they were into. And you saw a generation look at their parents as if, okay, we saw what you did, and that didn't seem to work for you. You're no better off now than you were, at the start of your journey. So when they see that, and because they're young, they don't understand, exactly how this life works. Not to discount their feelings, but what they see is, informs
Right.
who they become. So I think what they're trying to do is, like we're all trying to do, is search for our meaning, our purpose in this life. And a lot of people are comfortable is like, my reason for existence is God. And that's fine. Until, like I said, when those kids say, well, look, God don't seem to be making you a better person. or this alcohol don't seem to be making you a better person. Drugs don't seem to be making you a better person. You know, your job don't seem to be making you a better person. Like none of these things that you're trying. So when kids see that, like we were talking at the top of the conversation, when kids see that, they're like, okay, I'm gonna find something else.
But it's sad that,
It's very sad.
yeah, and my perspective, from my perspective, in many ways, I feel that the church system, I'm going to say the church system, has failed the generation because they did not shift. They did not grow
They didn't evolve.
with them. Yeah.
Right.
And it created such a gap because I'm going to stick to what's always been done. I don't have an open mind for any change or any activities. And so it has shut out a generation. And my greatest concern is for men, because so many men are operating dysfunctionally.
Oh yeah.
They, you know, I mean, they don't know how to express themselves. They have two emotions, and that's sex and anger.
Yep.
And outside of that, they don't know how to express. And some of that, what I'm learning now and what I studied in school, what happens is in homes, especially where the millennials grew up and some of the baby boomers, there was only a mother. The mother was the central figure.
Right.
And here you are, a little boy. And without any male influence, this is your example, unless they, of course, drug you
Right.
to church.
Right.
So you could be around
Well,
other
another
men.
man, yeah.
Or you had Uncle Bobo or whoever that was supposed to take the place
Right.
of that person that was supposed to be responsible for your healthy growth and development. And what concerned me about that, because we're such nurturers, and we operate with such emotion, such feeling, that when we're raising little boys, when we're raising young men, we're not really in touch with them because they're on a logical track. And we're on an emotional track. And we're trying to create behavior,
Right.
but not change.
Right. And I think I think what happens in those situations is when women realize that they have to raise a man or whatever, while they're nurturers, they can become hard because they think men are supposed to be hard. So there was this, you know, the gender roles have changed where, you know, you don't have to be that hard as a man as our fathers were. Our fathers were carved out of stone, you know. But when women are trying to raise men, it's according to a stereotype of what they think men are supposed to be.
Right.
Because you're about to push this child into the world at some point, and you want him to be able to handle whatever life throws at him, hard or not. As black men, it's even worse when single mothers are raising little black men because they already know we have it hard, especially in this country. So they're a little bit more rigid with us, a little bit more strict, less nurturing or whatever, which is the thing that we need the most. And so, and that is what continues the cycle, you know, from my perspective is, and that's why a lot of these single mothers struggle with their relationships with their sons is because, yeah, I got the hard part, but where was the love? You know?
And I see many mothers afraid to nurture.
Yes, very.
And other things that happen psychologically is how you've been treated by men. Affects how you raise your little
Yes.
Yeah, because it shapes you, you know, and it gives you a perception and a mindset, let me say a mindset of how men are. And then we tend to, because we're emotional, put all men, that all men are in this category somewhere. We have this scale, and they're going to fall in here somewhere.
Yeah.
And when we meet somebody different, we usually self-sabotage that because of our previous experiences.
Yeah, we don't know.
And then we have the
person.
other side of the spectrum where the mother is over-nurturing and raises that young man like a young lady and impacts his own understanding of who he is and what he is to become. And that's why we're talking about mentality.
Right.
We have to get the right information. We have to have the right interventions to help our young people move along a healthy path. Of course, I'm a Christian. I believe in Christ. I believe God is the true and living God. That's my belief.
Right.
But if I want to, say, bring you into that belief, then I have to first come where you are. I've got to locate you somewhere.
Right.
And I've got to find a point where we can agree.
Okay.
Or else you're not going to receive me.
Right.
You're not going to hear me. And that's my concern, is why, as a people, I know some of it came out of slavery and the stigma and the stereotypes around not being mentally, emotionally healthy, that it was always an illness and you had to be hospitalized or you were ostracized in many cases because you were different. You were crazy.
Yeah.
When oftentimes you were dealing with people who were just creative, you were dealing with people who did not follow the normal path of life, and they're persecuted, even by their parents.
Yep. No, like when I grew up, you had one term and it was crazy.
Okay.
And crazy was bipolar, it was autistic, it was ADHD. Like I still think I had ADHD. I could not sit still as a child. But we stigmatized that to the point where, and in a lot of cases, the church had a part to play in this, because when you saw someone as ill, you stuck them in a corner and you prayed for them.
Right.
You never met them. You never tried to figure out what the problem was.
Right.
You just stuck them in a corner and prayed for them. Or you didn't leave them in the room with the kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, with the normal ones, you ostracized them. So the kids that got, the normal kids, they grew up watching that behavior.
Right.
And they thought that's what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
So.
And we have a whole system like that now.
Yep.
That and I hate it because they've actually proven that if young boys, young men don't learn how to read by fourth grade, that they're already on a track to prison.
Yep.
Yeah. So as a parent, knowing that, I really would want to crack down on education, to make sure that my son had the proper examples, had the proper positions in life concerning where they were going and what they wanted to be, which means I have to get to know my child.
Yes.
And every child is different. There are no two children alike.
You don't have to tell me. I have 3 of them. But I did hear a study, and it was revolving how parents talk to their kids. And the amount of words spoken to your kid per week makes a difference on where that kid winds up. It's not always to do with their economic situation or whatever. It's if the parent is actually speaking to the children. And I think the difference was like 10,000 words per week.
Wow.
Between how a kid who doesn't wind up in a great financial status compared to a kid that does. And I don't know how you don't talk to your children. But
it's easy. I work all day with people I don't like. And already in my mind, I'm thinking, what do I have to cook? Because I've got to feed.
Right.
And then what bill is due, or I'm not feeling well, and I need somebody to talk to me. And all of this gets projected on those little people in your house. This is why we advocate. I am really trying to bring awareness to the mental health space. Don't suffer in silence.
Right.
Get help. It's available to you. And it has changed from times past. Now, they used to, when you went to a psychiatrist, immediately you were given some form of medicine, a drug that you were on, and you walked around spaced out a lot. But it's not like that anymore. People are gaining more knowledge, more insight. They're becoming more skillful with consultation, counseling, and coaching. And I just want to say to our TV listening audience, it's important if you realize that you're not really functioning healthy in your mental aspect and approach to life, get help. It doesn't mean that you're crazy. It doesn't mean that something is wrong. What it does mean is that you're not in touch with what's going on in your life. As we're preparing to end this broadcast, David, I want you to tell them about the next play that you're going to be in and where they can.
Well, I think the next play I know that I'll be in is Shawshank Redemption. That plays from May 20th through June 4th, so I'm not sure when this airs. After that, I plan to take a slight break because I'm focusing more on film. I have a film, I can't give the details, that'll be out
Okay.
later this year that will wind up in Montreal.
Yay.
Yeah, that's
Well,
pretty
we
much it for right now.
celebrate you, David. You really are a positive figure in the Black community, and it's just been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your transparency in expressing life with David.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for providing this space for men to be able to receive, listen, and maybe give back or whatever what they learned from you.
Well, thank you. God bless you, and thank you so much. We'll be back with you again next week for Mentality. Gather your sons, your cousins, your nephews, any male that you want to be influenced in a positive way, because each week we're going to have male interaction, male interviews, information and inspiration for you concerning finance, relationship, career, and business. God bless you. I'm Dr. Diane Clark, and I am empowering the harvest.
If this encounter has been a blessing to you, send us an email at dclarkministries@gmail.com and let us know how we've been a blessing to you. Or write us a letter or drop us a seed at Dr. Diane Clark, P.O. Box 9148, Jacksonville, Florida, 32208. Or call 904-419-9831. Stay connected with Dr. Clark and the Unplugged Ministry. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Like our Facebook page and Instagram family. This way, when we go live, you'll get an alert the doctor is live. To find out more about Dr. Clark, go to my website today. And while you're there, become a partner? Go to DianeUnplugged.com. Put a seed in the ground and name your seed. Experience the blessings of the Lord by sowing into this outreach. Help us take the gospel around the world. You can do so by going to Cash App. Type in the dollar amount you would like to give, and then type in $D Clark Ministries in the For section. Make sure you include your telephone number and a small prayer request. I can assure you that our prayer counselors will be praying for your needs. So you've been watching the show. Would you like to be a content provider yourself and develop a show for the Inspire Network? Please give us a call today at 904-389-5592 or go to www.connecttv.org.